We don't have any smoothie recipes to start making yet, but to start with, that isn't going to matter. Instead, we're going to look at the basics that apply to any smoothie. Because really, you don't necessarily need a recipe. There's nothing wrong with just experimenting with different combinations of fruits and vegetables and tweaking the ratios to find things you like. Elsewhere in this series, you'll find a guide to the different health benefits of various fruits and vegetables, as well as the benefits of different nutrients, and that can serve as a good starting point. But to get creative, you need to know the basic rules that will apply regardless of your ingredients. How do you make sure that your smoothie is basically tasty and doesn't leave you cold? Well, the first thing to do is to choose the fruits and vegetables that you're going to add to your smoothie. As mentioned, you should choose the fruits and vegetables based on the goals you want to achieve and the nutrients you're interested in. Of course, you should aim for a balance, but ask what your primary goal is too. Is this a fat-burning smoothie, an energy smoothie, or a fiber-packed smoothie? Think too about the sugar content and acidity. Something like a banana or an avocado will be much less sugary than something like an orange or a mango. If you have one or two ingredients that pack a lot of sugar, then consider adding a few less sweet ingredients to try and even the score. What's also very important is to make sure that you get your ratios correct, and we'll come to this in a moment. The first thing to add to your container before you start making your smoothie is some form of liquid. This, of course, is going to be what keeps your drink a drink and not a mush. What's also important, though, is that you think about how much liquid you want and what type of liquid you're going to use. The most common choice of liquid will be water. However, it's also fairly common to use milk, which comes packed with its own nutrients, or to use fruit juices. It's also normal to use 1 to 2 cups for one person's worth of smoothie. Note that your smoothie's consistency is very much dependent on what you do now. If you want the drink to be very runny, then adding a lot of water and juice is fine. If you prefer a thicker consistency, though, then you'll want to add a little less and or choose something that is thicker to begin with, such as milk or even yogurt. Whether you prefer your drink to be runny or thick is entirely a matter of preference and might also vary depending on the recipe and the goal. Common liquids you can use for delicious smoothies include water, almond milk, coconut milk, coconut water, organic fruit juice, freshly squeezed juice, kefir, tea, or yogurt. Have fun and experiment. The next thing to think about is your base texture, and often just referred to as the base. This is what's going to provide the body of your smoothie and give it a thick consistency so that it is a smoothie and not a juice. The aim here is to pick something which has a thicker consistency itself, and that usually means something along the lines of bananas, mangoes, pears, peaches, or avocados. Yogurt, or yogurt as it's also pronounced, also works well, as do nut butters like peanut butter. Coconut meat, chia seeds, ice, frozen fruit, or even cream, although this last option is not quite so healthy, are also things that you might want to consider. Good bases include bananas, mangoes, pears, peanut butter, avocado, yogurt, frozen fruit, peaches, apples, plums, or melon. The next thing to do is to insert the additional fruits and or vegetables in the necessary ratios. You've already set them aside, now you need to choose the specific quantities and add them in. For example, if you're going to make a green smoothie, you'll probably be adding spinach, kale, beet greens, dandelions, lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, etc. For juicy ones, you'll likely have things like berries, oranges, apples, and so on. You already have your base, and this is going to give the most flavor to begin with. Choosing fruits from here is a matter of choosing what goes well with that base, and you can work this out by thinking about what works well on a plate together. For example, a great dessert is to have berries with yogurt, and for that reason you can get the same delicious effect by adding berries to a yogurt base. This will give you a ton of antioxidants, while the yogurt in particular will help you to get digestive benefits, and we'll talk more about this in a subsequent video. Conversely, strawberries are known to go very well with bananas. Likewise, mangoes and orange is a great mix. With all that done, add your fruits into the blender, de-seeded and de-stoned of course, and then blend them up into a pulp. You can always add more water at this point if you decide it needs it. Remember to keep your hand over the lid though. The instructions in the last video will help you to start experimenting with your own smoothies and feeling the health benefits of getting more vitamins and minerals for yourself. But there are also a number of other things you can do to make your meals that much tastier, to make them that much more fun, or to save yourself time. Here are some tips. Now, there are numerous garnishes you can add to a smoothie if you want to give them a more impressive look and flavor. For example, you can sprinkle some granola or chopped nuts on top, and this will help to fill you up. Nuts are also a great choice if you're going to be using peanut butter as a base. If you feel like your smoothie isn't sweet enough, you might be tempted to add some sugar or a sweetener or syrup. Now, this isn't a particularly good idea. Adding sugar to your smoothie is, of course, only going to exacerbate the issues already associated with the high sugar content in these drinks. Meanwhile, sweeteners actually fool the body into thinking it has consumed sugar, and it will trigger an insulin response, which in turn causes us to feel tired and may be bad for our health. There are some options that people prefer, such as stevia, but on the whole, it's better to stick with natural ingredients. Just add more of the sweeter fruits and maybe consider using some honey. Honey actually has a ton of benefits and is great just before bed. What's actually just as important as learning to make smoothies is learning to fit them into your routine. Earlier in this series, we discussed how you could fix your diet just by aiming to get more fruits and vegetables into it naturally. Of course, this is a simple solution and just as healthy as having fruits and vegetables. The problem, as we saw, was that a lot of people struggle to fit that into their routine. They start out with good intentions, but it only takes a long day at work for cooking a meal to be off the table. Pun very much intended. Likewise, if you're on the train and all you can buy for lunch is a processed sandwich, that won't leave you with much choice but to break the healthy diet. Smoothies are effective because they're easier to fit into a normal routine. But they're not perfectly easy, and from time to time you'll find that they can still seem like too much work, too much mess, and too much effort. This is particularly true considering that you don't just have to make the smoothie, but you also have to clean the smoothie maker, you have to source the fruits and vegetables, and generally put a lot of time and work into preparing them, and they're expensive. The objective here, then, is to make sure we're set up to win. You need to make sure that it's easier to stick with your smoothie plan than it is to cheat on it and skip them. And this video will help you to do exactly that. Now, the first thing to do to minimize the amount of work you have for yourself is by using the right equipment. Front and center is that smoothie maker itself. A good smoothie maker, blender, food processor, or juicer should be highly powerful. You want to have the confidence of knowing that you can throw in any combination of fruits and vegetables, within reason, and it won't break or get stuck in the process. You want it to be fast, and you want it to not make a mess. What's also very important, though, is that you have to minimize the amount of washing up you have to do for yourself. The big problem here is that smoothie makers are often very inconvenient to wash and clean. This is true in particular thanks to their blades, which are awkward to reach and which rotate when you try to grip them. These factors combine to make cleaning out your blenders a right royal nightmare. Fortunately, some newer models have been designed with this in mind and feature blades that are easy to remove or which don't come into direct contact with the pulp and thereby stay cleaner. Another handy feature is the ability to remove the top of your blender and go. The first product to get famous for doing this was the NutriBullet, but its popularity has spawned countless copycats. The idea is simply that you have a blender and a water bottle combined in a single product, meaning that you don't have a separate glass to wash up. Prep and pick up is a concept that comes from the author Tim Ferriss. The idea is that you want to do all of your work in advance, so all you have to do when it comes to the crunch is pick it up and go. In our case, this means you're going to prepare your smoothie at the start of the week and then drink it throughout the week. One way to do this is just to make huge quantities of your smoothies on a Sunday and then store them in bottles in the fridge. Each morning you can simply grab a bottle and go without having to actually labor over it then and there. Some people also find it helpful to freeze the fruits themselves before dropping them into the blender. This is a great choice because it allows them to buy in bulk up front and then not worry about ripening. Keep in mind though that ripe fruit is less of an issue when it's being blended anyway. You can also make your life a little easier by ordering your fruits and vegetables online. This is a great choice if you find you're struggling to get time to head out and get your ingredients, as it means they will be ready for you and you can simply drop them in the blender ready to go. You can also make savings this way. But a note here, if you're interested in making savings on your fruits and vegetables, then the very best way to buy them is from a farmer's market. If you happen to have one near you, then make sure you take full advantage of it. You can also make your smoothies a little easier in numerous other ways. Using a pure fruit juice, for instance, can save you time and effort, and so too can using purees and canned fruits. These are especially useful for things like pineapples, peaches, and cranberries. Why? Because those ingredients are particularly difficult to prepare and involve a lot of peeling and de-seeding. By using a tinned fruit, you have it ready to go in a form that is soft and easy to blend. If you really don't have time to make your own smoothies, should you be tempted by store-bought smoothies? Is this a good way to get your ingredients without spending time? Well, the answer is yes and no. Of course, making your own smoothie gives you tighter control over the ingredients. It saves you a lot of money, and all in all, it's a smarter choice. While buying a store-bought smoothie might not sound like a lot of money, perhaps setting you back $2.50 a day, it will quickly add up, and that is actually $17.50 a week, $70 a month, and around $840 a year. But then again, if you normally get a coffee every morning, then you can swap it for a smoothie and spend just as much while getting health benefits instead of fueling yourself with that wired feeling that you get from coffee. If buying smoothies in town is the only way you can stick with it, then it's money well spent. But do be very careful to check the ingredients thoroughly. Just because the makers brag about how many whole fresh fruits they put in, that doesn't mean they haven't also flooded it with sugar, additives and other things. Do your research carefully.